It's strange to think that the very thing you're using to understand these words is the same thing being described by them. The brain is a paradox like that, an organ trying to understand itself. Hidden within your skull, it hums quietly, orchestrating every thought, emotion, and movement, even while you sleep. It's not loud about it. It doesn't demand attention. It just works, shaping the story of who you are with every second that passes. If you could hold a brain in your hands, you might be surprised at how ordinary it seems. Soft, gray, a little squishy, not unlike firm tofu. But behind that unassuming texture lies the most complex structure in the known universe. It's made up of billions of neurons, tiny, excitable cells that talk to each other through rapid electrical signals. Each one forms connections, sometimes thousands, with others, creating an intricate network that shifts and changes all the time. It's not static. It's alive in motion, rewiring itself as you think, learn, and experience the world. At its simplest level, every thought or feeling begins as an electrical impulse. A neuron fires, sending a signal along its length, like a spark racing down a wire. But the real magic happens at the synapse, the tiny gap between one neuron and the next. There, the signal transforms into a chemical message, passed along by neurotransmitters. These microscopic messengers cross the gap, bind to the next neuron, and ignite another electrical pulse. Billions of these exchanges are happening right now inside your head, faster than you can blink, creating a continuous stream of consciousness that feels like you. It's easy to imagine the brain as a control center, something that issues commands to the body. But the truth is more interesting. The brain isn't a dictator sitting at a desk, ordering systems around. It's more like a sprawling city, buzzing with communication, traffic, and negotiation. Some regions specialize in language, others in movement, others in emotions or memory. But nothing happens in isolation. The beauty of the brain lies in how these regions cooperate, how they share information and shape perception together. Take sight, for instance. We often think we see with our eyes, but that's not quite true. The eyes are only sensors. They gather light and translate it into electrical signals. The actual act of seeing happens in the back of your brain, in the occipital lobe, where those signals are reconstructed into images. But even that's not the full picture, literally. Your brain doesn't present reality as it is. It edits guesses and fills in gaps. What you perceive is a best guess, a constructed version of reality shaped by expectation, memory, and attention. You might think this makes the brain unreliable, but it's actually a feature, not a flaw. By predicting what's coming next, your brain saves time and energy. It allows you to move through the world efficiently. If you've ever caught a ball without consciously thinking about it, or recognized a friend from a distance, you've experienced this predictive power. Your brain constantly anticipates what's about to happen, updating its guesses as new information arrives. Most of the time, it's eerily accurate. Now imagine zooming out from one neuron to see the brain's larger landscape. There are patterns within patterns. The outer layer, the cerebral cortex, is the newest in evolutionary terms, and is what gives us our unique capacity for thought, imagination, and self-awareness. It's folded in on itself, like a crumpled sheet of paper, so it can pack more surface area into a small space. Beneath it lie older structures shared with other animals that govern instinct and survival, things like hunger, fear, and pleasure. This layer design is a reminder that the brain didn't appear all at once. It evolved slowly, over millions of years, adding new capabilities on top of old ones. At the deepest level sits the brainstem, controlling the basics: breathing, heartbeat, sleep. Above it is the limbic system, the emotional core, home to the amygdala, hippocampus, and other structures that make life feel meaningful. These regions give color to your experiences, linking emotion with memory so that moments stick. Without them, your world will be flat. Facts without feeling, motion without motivation. Then, wrapped around it all, is the cortex, the crown jewel that lets you reason, plan, and imagine worlds that don't exist. But even with all that complexity, the brain's genius lies in its unity. Every part, from the oldest instinctive circuits to the newest rational networks, must collaborate. When you make a decision, it isn't logic alone that chooses. It's emotion and memory and prediction all tangled together. The brain doesn't separate reason from feeling. It weaves them. You are not a creature of pure thought or pure emotion, but a dynamic blend of both, shifting moment to moment. And here's something even more fascinating. The brain changes itself in response to everything you do. Every skill you practice, every language you learn, every new environment you explore leaves a physical mark. Tiny changes in strength and number of neural connections. This is called plasticity, and it's one of the brain's most extraordinary features. It means you're not fixed. Your mind, quite literally, reshapes itself to match your experiences. When you learn a musical instrument, regions that control hearing and movement grow stronger. When you navigate a new city, areas linked to spatial awareness expand. Your brain adapts to you. This adaptability also means that the brain carries the fingerprints of your past. Habits, beliefs, fears, they're all patterns etched into neural pathways. Some of them serve you well. Others can trap you in loops of thought or behavior. But because the brain can change, those loops aren't permanent. With time and effort, new patterns can be formed. Change is slow, but it's possible down to the cellular level. Think about that for a moment. Every memory you hold, every word you've ever spoken, every face you recognize, they all exist as patterns of electrical activity and chemical traces. A few volts here, a few molecules there, and suddenly there's love, regret, laughter, curiosity. Somehow, from the chatter of billions of neurons, consciousness arises. It's an everyday miracle, so ordinary we forget to be amazed by it. And yet, for all its wonder, the brain is also fragile. Deprive it of oxygen for a few minutes, and its delicate balance begins to collapse. Starved of sleep, and it falters in strange ways. Memory slips, emotions intensify, perception blurs. The very organ that gives you awareness is also the one most dependent on rest. During sleep, it cleans itself, replaying and reorganizing memories, flushing out waste products, and resetting circuits for a new day. Far from being idle, the resting brain is deeply active, repairing, rebalancing, dreaming. Dreams are among the brain's strangest acts, a private theater where reality bends and time dissolves. Scientists still debate why we dream, but one thing is clear. The dreaming brain is exploring itself. It stitches fragments of experience into stories, searching for patterns, maybe even practicing emotions. When you wake, the dream fades, but traces remain, shaping creativity, solving problems, or simply reminding you that your inner world is vast and strange. So here we are, conscious beings living inside a 3-pound universe. It's easy to take it for granted, to forget that every sight, sound, and thought passes through this living web of cells. But when you pause and think about it, really think about it, it's humbling. The brain doesn't just control your life. It is your life. It's the lens through which everything else exists. And understanding it, even a little, means coming closer to understanding yourself. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast city at night. From above, you can see an endless constellation of lights. Streets weaving like veins, buildings glowing like neurons. Now, imagine that city alive, constantly changing, responding, rebuilding itself every second. That city is inside you. The brain is not static. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. Every thought is construction work. Every emotion is traffic. Every decision is a ripple that moves through the streets. Nothing here is random. Everything is connected. And even the smallest spark of thought can shift the architecture of your mind. Let's begin with the basics of that architecture. Inside the brain, billions of neurons form clusters and pathways, but neurons are only half the story. The other half is made of supporting cells called glia, quiet helpers that outnumber neurons by about 10 to 1. For a long time, scientists thought glial cells were just a scaffolding, the filler between the real workers. But it turns out they're far more than that. Some glia wrap around neurons, insulating their electrical messages, so they travel faster, while others clean up waste, regulate chemical balance, or even influence learning. It's a reminder that in this city of thought, every worker matters, even those that seem invisible. If neurons are the electrical network, neurotransmitters are the city's language. These are the chemicals that carry messages from one cell to another, dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, acetylcholine, and dozens more. Each one shapes your experience in subtle ways. Dopamine fuels motivation and reward, giving you that sense of satisfaction when you achieve something or anticipate pleasure. Serotonin helps regulate mood, keeping emotions balanced. Glutamate excites, while GABA calms. The dance between these chemicals determines how alert, happy, or focused you feel at any given moment. When the dance is disrupted, the city feels out of rhythm. Too much activity in one area, not enough in another, and the world inside can start to feel dim or chaotic. Now, zoom in on a single moment, the instant before you make a decision. You might think choices are purely conscious, deliberate acts of will, but in truth, your brain starts preparing before you're even aware of it. Neurons begin firing fractions of a second before you decide to move or speak. It's not that you have no control. It's that your conscious awareness is a latecomer to the party. The brain predicts what's coming next, sets things in motion, and only then informs you of what's already begun. This discovery unsettled many people because it blurs the line between free will and biological inevitability. But maybe it's not a loss of control. Maybe it's proof of how efficiently your mind works, automating what it can so consciousness can focus on the big picture. That automation is everywhere. Consider habits, the brain's shortcut to save energy. When you repeat an action often enough, the neural pathway that drives it becomes stronger, smoother, and faster. The brain is always trying to conserve resources, so if it can turn a conscious effort into an automatic one, it will. This is why habits can feel so hard to break. They're literally etched into the wiring. But it's also why new habits can form. If you introduce a different pattern and repeat it long enough, the brain begins to shift. The old pathway fades, the new one strengthens. Change takes time, but the brain's plasticity makes it possible. Plasticity doesn't just apply to habits. It defines learning itself. Think of it as the brain's superpower. Every time you learn something new, from tying a knot to playing a chord on a guitar, you're physically changing the structure of your brain. Synapses grow stronger or weaker depending on how often they're used. Connections that fire together wire together. This is how memory forms, how skill deepens, how thought becomes instinct. What's remarkable is that this ability never fully disappears. Even in old age, the brain remains capable of growth and adaptation. It might slow, but it never stops. To see how learning works, let's follow memory as it forms. Say you meet someone for the first time. Your senses capture fragments of the moment, their face, their voice, the smell of coffee nearby. These signals travel through sensory regions, converging in the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub. The hippocampus doesn't store memories forever. Instead, it organizes and distributes them to other regions for long-term storage. Over time, pieces of that first meeting are woven into your broader web of experience, connected to emotions, context, and meaning. When you recall that person later, your brain reactivates the same pattern of neural activity that first represented them, almost like replaying a recording. But memory isn't perfect. It's more like a reconstruction than a playback. Each time you remember something, your brain modifies it slightly, reshaping the story based on new information or emotion. This flexibility is both a gift and a curse. It lets us learn and reinterpret, but it also means memory can be unreliable. The same mechanisms that let us grow also make us vulnerable to distortion. In that sense, the brain is less like a filing cabinet and more like a living novel, rewritten every time we open it. Emotion plays a crucial role in that rewriting. Feelings aren't separate from thinking. They're the glue that holds meaning together. When something makes you happy, frightened, or sad, the amygdala lights up, tagging that experience with emotional weight. The stronger the emotion, the more likely the memory will stick. That's why you can recall exactly where you were during a life-changing event, but forget what you had for lunch 3 days ago. Emotion tells the brain, this matters, remember this. Without it, experience would blur into gray sameness. The interplay of emotion and reason defines so much of human behavior. We like to think logic guides us, but often logic comes second. Emotions act first, fast and automatic, while reasoning steps in later to justify or refine the feeling. This isn't a flaw. It's evolution's way of keeping us safe. Our ancestors couldn't afford to debate the logic of a rustling bush. They had to feel fear first and think later. The emotional brain, ancient and instinctive, still drives us today, even in modern life. The challenge is not to silence it, but to understand it, to recognize when an old reflex is guiding a new situation. Understanding those emotions also helps us understand empathy, the brain's remarkable ability to mirror the feelings of others. When you see someone smile or wince, your mirror neurons activate as if you were experiencing the same emotion. This mechanism allows for compassion, cooperation, and connection. It's what binds individuals into societies, what lets us share joy and ease suffering. In a way, empathy is proof that your brain isn't just yours. It's wired to resonate with other brains, to build bridges between minds. And still, for all its social brilliance, the brain remains profoundly private. No one else can experience your inner world exactly as you do. Every perception, every memory, every shade of thought is filtered through your unique network of connections. Even identical twins with the same DNA will develop slightly different brains, shaped by their own histories. This individuality is what makes consciousness so mysterious. You are both the product of biology and the author of your own reality, a living paradox housed within a soft shell of tissue. At times, this realization can be unsettling. If everything about who you are, your identity, your preferences, your beliefs, is just neural activity, what does that say about you? But perhaps that's the wrong question. The brain isn't reducing you to chemistry. It's revealing that chemistry can give rise to love, hope, and imagination. Within those electric patterns lies everything that makes you human. Understanding them doesn't diminish the mystery, it deepens it. So as we move forward in this journey through the mind, remember this: every flicker of curiosity you feel right now is itself a pattern of neurons firing, a self-referential loop of wonder. The brain is studying itself, and in doing so, discovering that its capacity for reflection might be its greatest achievement of all. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the rhythm of your heartbeat, the rise and fall of your breath, the faint hum of life that carries on whether you notice it or not. Beneath awareness, your brain is managing all of this: breathing, blood pressure, digestion, tasks so automatic you almost forget they exist. It's a quiet symphony of survival, conducted by ancient regions that have been evolving for hundreds of millions of years. These are the oldest parts of the brain, and they are what keep you alive. Yet they also form a foundation upon which everything else, your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of self, is built. At the base of it all lies the brainstem, the simplest and most essential structure. It's the life support system, controlling the heartbeat, the lungs, and the reflexes that operate without permission. It doesn't think, it doesn't reason. It simply keeps you going. When you sleep, it remains alert, maintaining the delicate rhythm of existence. It is ancient, powerful, and relentless. Without it, the rest of the brain would be silent. Just above the brainstem sits the limbic system, the emotional heart of the human experience. If the brainstem keeps you alive, the limbic system gives you a reason to stay that way. It's where feelings begin, where memories are stitched together, and where the raw energy of emotion transforms into meaning. The amygdala detects danger, lighting up at the first hint of threat, while the hippocampus gathers the details of the moment, storing them away for later. Together, they create a map of what the world feels like. Every joy, every sorrow, every rush of fear or love is rooted here, in this tangled network of ancient circuits. Emotion was once thought to be the enemy of reason, something to overcome or control. But modern understanding tells a different story. The rational mind is not a commander giving orders. It's a partner in constant dialogue with emotion. Logic may help you weigh options, but emotion tells you what matters. Without emotion, decisions lose meaning. Imagine trying to choose between saving a friend or a stranger if you felt nothing. It's the emotional weight that gives morality, art, and even memory their shape. Far from being a distraction, emotion is the compass that guides reason toward purpose. When emotion surges, chemicals flood the brain. Adrenaline sharpens focus. Cortisol prepares the body for challenge. Oxytocin nurtures connection and trust. Each molecule changes the way neurons fire, altering the landscape of thought. Under stress, Your brain reroutes energy away from creativity and reflection toward survival and vigilance. That's why it's so hard to think clearly when afraid. The mind narrows, priorities collapse into a single instinct: stay safe. Yet when the danger passes and calm returns, the same chemistry can foster growth. Small doses of stress strengthen memory, refine reaction, and push the mind to adapt. Even discomfort has its use. It teaches resilience. It's easy to think of emotion as something that happens to you, but in truth, emotion is something you participate in. Your brain interprets bodily signals, heartbeat, muscle tension, breathing, and weaves them into feeling. This process, called interoception, means that emotions are not just in your head, but in your body. A racing pulse can become excitement or fear, depending on how your brain labels it. The same physical state can lead to very different stories. The brain doesn't simply react to the world. It builds a narrative from inside out, deciding what each sensation means. Consider, 2, how the brain's emotional world is tied to memory. When you recall a moment from your past, you don't just remember facts, you relive feelings. A certain song, a familiar smell, a flash of light can transport you instantly to another time. Because sensory information and emotion are stored side by side, the hippocampus and amygdala work together to give memories their emotional texture. It's why nostalgia feels warm and loss feels heavy. The past isn't just data. It's alive in the chemistry of the present. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, the region that sits just behind your forehead, the part that allows you to plan, reflect, and resist impulse. This is the most recent evolutionary addition to the brain, and it's what gives humans their remarkable capacity for foresight. It negotiates between instinct and intention, helping you pause before acting, weigh outcomes, and make choices that look beyond the moment. But this balance is delicate. Under emotional strain, the prefrontal cortex can be overpowered by older systems, leading to impulsive choices or words you later regret. You could say that emotional regulation isn't about silencing feelings. It's about keeping a conversation going between the brain's past and its present. This internal conversation shapes every relationship you have. When you connect with someone, your brains synchronize in subtle ways. Your breathing may match, your tone may mirror theirs, and your emotional states can align. This isn't metaphorical, it's measurable. Neuroimaging shows that when two people deeply engage with each other, their brain patterns begin to echo. It's as if empathy is a bridge built of rhythm and chemistry. We are social creatures, not just in behavior, but in biology. Connection changes the brain, reinforcing pathways of trust, compassion, and belonging. Loneliness, on the other hand, leaves its mark. The brain experiences social isolation as a form of threat. Stress hormones rise. The amygdala becomes hyperactive, and circuits that normally soothe and stabilize begin to weaken. This is why meaningful connection isn't just emotional comfort. It's biological necessity. The brain evolved in communities, and it expects to be part of one. When that connection fades, health and cognition decline. Our need for each other is written into our neural code. Yet, connection doesn't only exist between people. It exists within you. The conversation between reason, emotion, and instinct is a kind of internal relationship, one that requires balance and awareness. When these systems harmonize, you feel grounded and clear. When they clash, confusion or anxiety arise. The process of understanding your own mind, of recognizing how emotion and thought intertwine, is not unlike learning to understand another person. It takes patience, curiosity, and compassion. There's another layer to this harmony, the body itself. Every heartbeat, every breath sends feedback to the brain, shaping your mental state. Deep breathing can slow the heart, lowering stress signals and calming the mind. Movement releases chemicals that lift mood and sharpen focus. Sleep restores a delicate chemistry that underpins attention and emotion. The brain is not separate from the body. It's part of a continuous loop. The two speak constantly, shaping one another in a language older than words. And then there is consciousness, the great mystery that sits atop this complex machinery. It's the awareness that watches thoughts come and go, the sense of I that persists through time. Neuroscience can map where awareness flickers in the brain, but it still cannot fully explain how subjective experience arises from matter. How does the firing of neurons produce the color blue, the sound of laughter, the taste of rain? The question remains open, one of the last great frontiers of science. But perhaps consciousness isn't a thing to be solved. It's a thing to be lived. What we do know is that consciousness is deeply linked to attention. What you focus on shapes your reality. The brain filters a flood of sensory information every second, deciding what to highlight and what to ignore. You never experience everything, only what your brain deems important. In that way, attention is the brush that paints the world you inhabit. And because attention can be trained, you can shape your experience intentionally. Practices like mindfulness and meditation don't change what's happening around you. They change how your brain engages with it. As the day ends and you drift towards sleep, the brain continues its quiet work. It replays memories, reorganizes information, and strengthens the patterns that matter most. Dreams emerge from this process, blending fragments of thought and memory into surreal stories. Some dreams help process emotion. Others test scenarios or spark creativity. During these hours, your conscious mind rests, but the rest of your brain is alive with purpose. When you wake, you're slightly different, a bit more learned, a bit more healed, subtly reshaped by the night's invisible labor. You may not feel it, but every sunrise meets a new version of your mind. This constant renewal is what makes the brain so extraordinary. It never stops building, never stops adapting, never stops learning. Every experience, every conversation, every quiet moment leaves its mark. The city of the mind is always under construction, and you are both its architect and its explorer. If you could listen closely enough, beneath the surface hum of thought, you might hear the faint whisper of electricity moving through your brain, a quiet crackle of activity that never ceases. It's astonishing to realize that everything you've ever known, every joy, heartbreak, and discovery has unfolded within this soft labyrinth of neurons. Yet the brain, for all its brilliance, is also humble in its purpose. Its one true goal is to help you make sense of the world, to survive, adapt, and when possible, to find meaning. And meaning, as it turns out, is not hidden in the vast unknowns of the universe, but right here, within the folds of your mind. To understand a brain's sense of meaning, we need to look at its most remarkable talent, pattern seeking. The human brain is obsessed with finding order in chaos. It links events, interprets coincidences, and fills in blanks with stories. This instinct kept our ancestors alive. It helped them notice danger in the rustle of leaves or see the promise of food in distant shapes. But in the modern world, this same instinct fuels imagination, belief, and creativity. The ability to connect unrelated things is the spark that gave birth to art, science, and language. It's why we can find beauty in randomness and lessons in uncertainty. The brain doesn't just notice patterns. It creates them. When you encounter something new, your brain immediately compares it to what you already know, trying to fit it into your existing model of reality. If it fits neatly, understanding feels instant. If it doesn't, the brain stretches, reshapes its patterns, and forms new ones. This is learning in its purest form, not memorizing information, but transforming the structure of perception itself. Each time this happens, a small rewiring takes place. Connections strengthened here, weakened there, as your mind reorganizes to include a broader picture of the world. This process is also the foundation of creativity. Ideas don't appear from nowhere. They're the brain's recombination of existing patterns. When inspiration strikes, it's not magic. It's neurons making new connections between familiar elements in unfamiliar ways. That's why creativity flourishes when you're relaxed or distracted. When the mind is quiet, patterns can intersect freely without the interference of strict logic. The most brilliant insights often arise not in moments of effort, but in moments of openness, when the brain is allowed to wander and play. But pattern seeking has a darker side too. The same system that helps us make sense of the world can also mislead us. We see meaning where none exists, attach importance to coincidence, or cling to false beliefs because the brain prefers certainty over ambiguity. It's not comfortable with not knowing. In its quest for order, it sometimes invents explanations just to fill the silence of uncertainty. Recognizing this tendency doesn't make us cynical. It makes us wiser. It reminds us that the brain's stories are interpretations, not absolute truth. Still, Those stories matter deeply. They shape your identity, the ongoing narrative of who you think you are. Every memory, every choice, every thought about yourself becomes part of that story. The brain weaves it seamlessly, editing and revising as you grow. You are both the main character and the storyteller. Sometimes a story empowers you, sometimes it confines you. But here's the beautiful part. The story is never finished. Because the brain can change, so can the story. You can rewrite how you see yourself, how you understand your past, how you imagine your future. The power of narrative is the power of neuroplasticity turned inward. Identity is a fragile construction, yet it feels solid because the brain needs stability. It creates the illusion of a continuous self. Even though you are constantly changing, the cells in your brain die and renew, memories fade and reshape, yet you remain you. This continuity is one of the brain's greatest tricks, and perhaps its greatest gift. It allows you to wake each morning and recognize yourself, to build a life that feels cohesive even in the face of constant transformation. Now, let's turn to one of the brain's most extraordinary functions, imagination, the ability to picture what doesn't exist, to travel in time through memory and possibility. When you imagine, your brain activates many of the same areas used in real experience. In a sense, to imagine is to simulate reality within the theater of the mind. This capacity lets us plan, dream, and create worlds that have never been seen. It also allows empathy, the ability to step into another's perspective. Imagination is what lets us extend beyond our immediate lives and shape futures that haven't yet happened. And what about consciousness, that ever-present sense of being? Science can describe its correlates, the networks that light up when awareness flickers, but not its essence. Consciousness remains a great unsolved mystery, the horizon beyond which understanding fades. Yet, in a way, maybe that mystery is the point. The brain's ultimate creation, awareness, is something it cannot fully grasp, because to do so will require stepping outside itself. It's like a flashlight trying to shine on its own beam. Perhaps what matters isn't solving consciousness, but experiencing it fully, vividly, with curiosity intact. In this light, wonder becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a practice. When you pause to marvel at how the brain can hold a thought, recall a memory, or feel love, you're engaging in the very act that defines humanity, self-reflection. The brain examining itself is one of nature's most poetic ironies. Matter becoming aware of its own existence. It's a reminder that science and awe are not opposites but companions. Understanding deepens wonder. Wonder fuels understanding. Together, they form a loop that has driven our species to explore, create, and learn. But even the most wondrous mind requires care. Modern life, with its noise and constant stimulation, overwhelms the brain's ancient rhythms. Attention, once a survival tool, now struggles under the weight of endless information. Every ping and notification competes for a fragment of awareness, scattering focus and fragmenting thought. When attention is divided too thinly, meaning begins to fade. The brain was not built for 1,000 simultaneous inputs. It was built for depth, not breadth. Reclaiming that depth through quiet, through rest, through mindful engagement is how the brain restores its balance. Rest itself is not a luxury. It's an essential part of cognition. During moments of stillness, the brain's default mode network activates, a set of regions that process memories, integrate experiences, and weave understanding from the chaos of living. When you daydream, reflect, or simply sit in silence, this network hums quietly, connecting dots you didn't even know were related. Creativity, empathy, and insight are all born in this silent space. The mind at rest is never idle. It's busy knitting together the fragments of your inner world. As you move through life, your brain remains your constant companion, shaping, interpreting, and transforming everything you experience. It's easy to think of it as something separate from you, but in truth, it is you. Every hope, every dream, every decision unfolds within its networks. The boundaries between brain and mind, between biology and identity, blur into insignificance. To understand a brain is not to reduce life to neurons. It's to recognize that even the most intricate machinery can give rise to art, compassion, and imagination. In the end, the story of the brain is a story of connection, between cells, between people, between thought and feeling, between matter and meaning. It's a reminder that you are not a collection of parts, but a symphony of processes, harmonizing moment by moment. And though the notes may change, the music continues, evolving, expanding, becoming richer with every experience. So, the next time you find yourself lost in thought or moved by memory, take a moment to marvel. The same organ that keeps your heart beating is also capable of poetry, love, curiosity, and understanding. Inside that quiet gray matter lies the entire spectrum of what it means to be alive. And perhaps the slow, gentle lesson of it all is this. The brain doesn't just explain you. It invites you to know yourself patiently, one thought at a time.